Welcome back. Today we are talking about Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This is a book I did not know existed, which is crazy because it made the New York Times 100 best books of the last century. And it came out in 2014, which is wild for what it's about. So what is it about, you ask? It is a post-apocalyptic novel about a pandemic that wipes out 99.6% of the Earth's population. Well, I will say it might be a tough read if you have certain triggers with pandemics. This book is set up in a really unique way where there are two parallel stories and you don't really know how they connect until later in the book. Our main character, Kirsten, is living in that post-apocalyptic world 10 years later where society has completely collapsed. There are little pocket towns, but pretty much there is nothing, no internet, no electricity, barely any people, food is scarce. It is not a fun time. But Kirsten is a part of this group called The Symphony, and it's a bunch of musicians and actors who travel town to town and kind of put on performances to carry on the legacy of all of this work from the past. They do a lot of Shakespeare because that was what was well known and what they still have. Obviously Shakespeare's been in print since the 1500s. There's a lot of Shakespeare running around. But I think it's also important to note one of the themes of this book is about what we choose to remember when everything's not readily available to us, and what the importance is in the things that we remember. By having this traveling symphony, they are preserving music, they are preserving plays, and they are kind of bringing this joy to this terrible world. In the other story, we have Arthur, who is a Hollywood star who is living in a time before the pandemic collapses society. He dies the same night that the flu breaks out. He has a heart attack on stage. That is the first chapter of the book. And he is performing, I think, King Lear by Shakespeare. And our main girl, Kirsten, she does have this strange fascination with him. When she finds magazines and things of him, she keeps them because she was one of the child actors that played one of his daughters in that King Lear production. But that is the only connection we know that they have. And as the story goes on, it just more connections between the two stories come together. I think this book is such an important read, not only because it discusses the idea of what we deem important to save, but it also talks about a society's resilience and their perseverance to preserve and keep humanity while also living in this world that is kind of void of humanity. There's this timelessness aspect to it as well, because things like Shakespeare are timeless. It's not about, the story of King Lear. It's about whatever themes and analysis of the human condition King Lear is presenting, which are things that at any timeline, any circumstances, people can understand. It does kind of talk directly about why art is important, and that the answer to that is the human condition. The human condition is just the things that we go through that we can connect to characters with, whether it's grief or a struggle or love or hatred or anger or sadness, just basic emotions and things that humans go through. Even if you've never yourself gone through them, reading about them helps you understand yourself better, and that's all about the human condition, which I think this book nails, and it does perfectly because it examines why some works are timeless. Shakespeare is not timeless because he's talking about the 1500s, King Richard III. He is timeless because he talks about the things King Richard III and all the people around him were going through at the time and how they felt about it, which are things people now can still relate to. And that's why I like this book. And I thought it was very interesting to read about the human condition in this way where it's art is preserved because they relate to it, even though they are so far removed from it. They no longer have a society, yet everything that the society had means so much to them because they can relate to the people who lived in that society. And lastly, the ending was perfect. Like every single question I had, every confusion, every loose end, it was all tied together. It felt like there was like 100, different strings here with different things I had, and then slowly but surely Emily was just there, weaving away. It was emotional, it was impactful, it was inspiring, and I loved it. I had to read this for a class, and I don't know if I ever would have picked it up off the shelf if I didn't, because post-apocalyptic worlds are not really my thing, but I think that this one was beautiful. And if I went the rest of my life without having ever read it, I really would have been missing out on something special, because as the New York Times said, this is one of the best books of the century. If you've read this book, let me know down below. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Other than that, I'm done with my review of Station 11 by Emily St. John. Hope you enjoyed.